Alright guys, it is time to light the fire, obviously. I've got my trusty Rockwood lump charcoal. I've really enjoyed using this charcoal. It is a American product, like it says on the label, Missouri hardwood. But it's been a very good, consistent, clean burn lump charcoal for my drum smokers. So that's something I really like. I don't have near the cleanup ash left over when I'm done cooking. But I've got one fairly large stick of apple wood in here. Since again we're doing this as a home backyard cook, I'm not loading it up with a combination of cherry and apple and different things. I'm just going to make a simple one stick burn here. And this is the shoulder. It tacked up a little bit, so I went ahead and layered on another light layer of my barbecue seasoning. You can still see a little bit of the moisture there in the centerpiece there between the two groups of muscles, but it is looking really good. Now I'm not going to go ahead and oil up and protect that skin like a lot of the competition teams do. Again, I reiterate, this is for backyard, this is for eating, not for showing. So I'm not going to worry too much about it, but a lot of times for presentation purposes, we'll put some spray cooking oil on that skin, and then maybe get a little cooking oil on a rag and protect that skin, wrap it up through the cooking process so it doesn't get that dark. But again, I'm going to tear into this thing when it's done and just break it up. So I've got one of my trusty Uncle Pookie smokers getting ready to start up here. I'm going to go ahead and put this fire basket in here. It's a cold, windy day today. And I'm just going to go ahead and put it in the cooker so that it is ready to start rolling. But it's not, the wind is not going to get to it so directly while I'm trying to just get a fire started. Now, for a cook like today where it's windy and cold, and I don't want to sit out here babysitting this thing, I do like to use these Pitmaster IQ fans. I have a couple of the 110s on my competition trailer just so that I can, they're just a simple one dial controller. This 120 adds a meat probe, and it's a digital controller. It's real nice, as a great unit, but simplicity's sake, on a contest style, I just like the one dial pit probe only so that I can control the temperature, not worry about anything else. But you see what we got going on today. We're about to throw that nice 14-15 pound shoulder onto the smoker, onto the Uncle Pookie smoker. We're going to control the airflow and the temperature with this nice little Pitmaster IQ, and we're not going to have any problems with the heat because we're using the Rockwood lump charcoal. Thank you to Jimmy at Memphis Barbecue Supply in Bartlett, Tennessee. He's my local supplier of the Rockwood charcoal, and another good product that he has there. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off, get that shoulder in the smoker, get closed up, and watch the temperature. Not the temperature, we're going to watch the color. Like I said the other day, when we're watching the color, then I'm going to wrap it up when it hits the color I want and put my meat probes in to watch the temperature to finish up. As cold as it is today, and it's later, it's almost 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I think I'm going to cheat, but to finish this shoulder up. So I'll explain that a little bit more in a little while we get to that point. But I'm going to sign off here and get to putting this shoulder in the drum and getting it rolling, and we will check back with y'all shortly. Take a look, see here. The Pitmaster IQ has been sitting at 275 for a couple of hours here. So I'm going to pause this for a second, open the lid, and then come right back. Actually, I may try this here and see if it will stand up. Take a look, see in while I'm opening the lid. How about that? Let's try that and see. Oh yeah. We're starting to get to the color that I want to see. I'm going to give it just a little bit more time, but it's got some dark edges there. Of course, the skin is getting very dark, which is to be expected, but it is looking good. So I'm going to go ahead and put this lid back on. We're going to give it another hour and then check the internals, bring it inside to wrap up, and I will tell you about our little secret we're going to do here, so stay tuned. Well, I just put the shoulder in the oven, 230 degrees, and the probes are reading almost dead on next to each other. They're one is in the butt end, almost in the end. It's kind of in the middle section of the end, and then the other is definitely down in the picnic end. I put it in first time, hit the bone, backed out and went a couple inches over and got clear shot into this dead meat, and we are reading almost dead on. So everything's looking really good. We're going to leave that in for a while, and we will check back with you here shortly when everything is running and gunning and see where we're at. Alright everybody, welcome back, and as you can see, we have our finished product. I'm going to get in here, pick this camera up and show you a little bit. One thing that the people will ask me is, why didn't you inject? I see all the big teams on TV, on the barbecue shows, doing an injection. Well, I'm going to grab this here real quick and give you a little bit of a view. I don't know if you can see, but there is plenty of juice in this pan here, and this has been surrounding this meat ever since we wrapped it up. Shortly after we wrapped it up anyway, is the fat and the juices in the meat start breaking down and rendering. That's what we have. So there is not an issue with moisture that some of the folks will say on the pitmaster shows and everything. Now for a contest, it's definitely not going to hurt to make, to inject, to make sure that you don't have, just by chance, a dry piece of meat, because those judges are getting one bite, and that's the important thing for them. But as you can see, we've got moisture all the way through this meat. This outside bark is nice and dark. It's not burned like I used to think when I was a kid. Oh, that's burnt meat. This is not the case. But I want to show you. This is coming off this picnic end, and it's very, very lean white meat. Very good stuff. But it is white meat. Now I come down here to this money muscle end. And you can see, besides the fact that it's just perfectly falling apart, it's a darker pink or red. It's got some of the smoke ring from that apple wood, but it's a little more tender because it does hold a little more moisture. It had more fat content in that money muscle than it does down here in this picnic end. Oh man, is it good though. Now just to kind of show you, here's that blade bone that just comes right out, and it is attached to that shank bone down in there. That's one reason why I didn't go ahead and just cut them apart before I cooked them. But you can see that meat is perfectly done. There's not, that's gristle right there. There's not a lick of meat left on this blade bone. That is clean and clear, and this meat in here is just perfectly done. Now when I talk about the white meat, I mean you get white meat in the butt end, the Boston butt end. But to me, it's just interesting to see how this meat kind of changes from the Boston butt end up here, down here, and you get under that skin, under that rind,
and you can get some of these wonderful interior pieces of meat, but they're white. They're the white meat. And they're part of that leg bone in here. And I mean, all this is just coming right apart. It's what I did basically. We'll break it down here real quick. Put the whole shoulder on at 275 in my drum smoker, about 12:45, just we'll say 1 o'clock. And at 5:30, we went ahead, we got to the color I wanted on the drum and wrapped it up in foil like I showed you earlier, and went ahead and put it in the oven instead of putting it back out on the drum. I knew that I didn't have a full charcoal box, firebox full, and I didn't want to take a chance since this is just a Sunday afternoon, and I didn't want to run across an issue of running out of fuel since it was windy and cooler, and not, I didn't want to burn through what fuel I had in there. So instead of worrying about that and going back and forth, it's wrapped in foil. It's not going to get any more smoke or flavor from the smoke. So I put it in the oven, and what I did is went ahead, I put it in the oven just to go ahead and get it to the same cooking temperature. I had it in the oven for at 275 for about an hour, and then again that was about 5:30. About 6:30, I went ahead and ramped the temperature up to 350 degrees. Knew there wasn't going to be a moisture issue. Obviously, there's not. It just kind of helped it get. I think the internal temperature then was about 165. That's right about where these larger pieces of meat start hitting that stall, where the moisture in the meat is creating, kind of a humid cooking environment, even though it's wrapped up. And it's like when you and I are working out, we're sweating, our body's trying to cool us down. This meat will do the same thing. The meat is trying to cool itself down, releases that moisture a little bit, but it got through the stall very quickly. And at 9 o'clock, I went ahead and pulled. My internal temperatures on both ends were at 200 degrees even. I kind of thought they were going to cook at a different speed because of the denser, more white meat here at the picnic end than at the butt end. That wasn't the case. They both stayed at the same temperature the whole time, a couple degrees off, but they both, I turned the oven off at 200 degrees and let this sit for about an hour and just vented the foil. I didn't open it all the way up, but I just let it to where some of that steam could come out, and it would stop the cooking process and then just start absorbing some of this moisture back in. And it has definitely done that. It is fantastic. And this is just straight pork. No injections, no flavors pushed inside the meat with the injection or anything like that. But now is the fun part. We'll get to this bark. This dark outside where all that seasoning sat. That is so good. You got the smoke that hit the sugars and the salts and the spices. It's so good. All that flavor just crusts up on the outside. If you can kind of see too, lights in here aren't real great, but it's got a nice smoke ring all the way through on the outside edge. And like I said, the inside of this meat is just absolutely moist. You get down here in some of this heavy white meat that's really, really dense, and it's by no means dried out. It's not it doesn't have as much moisture in it as this butt end does, but it's definitely not dry. I mean, it's good and moist too. It just has a little bit of different texture to it. So don't be afraid if you're used to cooking just the butt end or just the picnic end. Don't be afraid of a whole shoulder if you've got more people coming. I mean, you do have a little bit of weight here you're paying for, but it's still, If you get an 8-pound butt, if you go to a whole shoulder, you're probably going to get around 14 or 16 pounds. For in your normal grocery store setting, you can get bigger shoulders sometimes, but I mean that 14, 18 pound range is going to feed a lot of people. You can break it down really, really easy, and again, don't be afraid of finishing it off in the oven. That just kind of helps make it a quicker process overall. So I appreciate y'all tuning in, watching. Again, please like and subscribe to the channel. Subscribing is not going to get you to buying nothing. It's just going to basically give you updates. Anytime I am able to post a new video or any updates on there, you're going to get an email notification. But thank you for watching, and go get you a whole shoulder, and tell people you're cooking the whole shoulder, not just the Boston butt or the picnic end. And Super Bowl is going to be here in just a few weeks, so come on with it, and go get you a whole shoulder and get to cooking. Thank you muchly.